Hello and good day. I welcome you once more to this time. And today we'll be taking a look at consumer behavior. When we discuss consumer behavior, our interest is to understand the consumer in its entirety. We want to understand what the consumer buys. We want to understand why he buys those things. We want to understand how often he buys them, from where he buys them, and also how he disposes the products at the end of use. So we will be taking a look at some of the factors that lead the consumer to act in either of these ways. And these factors could be cultural, could be social, could be personal, could be psychological. First, just look at the cultural factors that affect the consumer. Elementary social studies teaches us that culture is the people's way of life. And within culture, a lot of things are integrated within people's culture. Their subculture, the social class, their cultural factors. So, a person's culture would direct or influence the person's wants, the person's behavior. Cultures are different, and there are different expectations people place on persons from a particular culture. It is said to be a fundamental part of behavioral determinants, because every individual grows up within a particular culture, and each culture has what we call the cultural norms and values. And it's these cultural norms and values that drives what people in that culture, or people who exhibit that culture, consume. The cultural values on wealth, the cultural values on affluence, cultural values on humility, has a way of affecting products that individuals would buy. Same thing applies to, subcultures, which is a smaller segment of a broader culture that affects the way people see themselves, the way they socialize, their way of life, their religious beliefs, and all whatnot. All of these has a way of affecting consumption patterns. Also, it's a social class. Within any society, social class represents the hierarchical order that persons in that society are placed. And individuals within any particular class have some homogeneous characteristics. The social class reflects people's occupation, their educational qualification, their income as well. And people within any of these categorizations have similar purchase and consumption patterns. Therefore, thereby, the class an individual finds him or herself becomes an indicator to what and how the person consumes some products. The second category, or second set of factors, is the social factors. Social factors. Man is said to be a social being, living and existing among other beings. And these other beings, in one way or the other, affects an individual, affects the individual's lifestyle, the individual's purchase and consumption patterns. Some of these factors within the social space is a reference group. A reference group. More often than not, we find people looking up to other persons who they may call role models, and then wanting to adapt or adopt this role model's lifestyle. This constitutes a reference group, the people they want to be like. And this group have a direct influence on a person. Some members in this reference group could be family, could be friends, could be neighbors, could be co-workers. And because of constant interaction, both formal and informal, begins to model his or her life, his or her behaviors, begins to want to share similar things as the reference group. And that could explain why you find most companies make use of celebrities. These celebrities who are expected to have a large fan base are used to advertise products, and then this supposed fan base or fans who wish to live or to wear things that these celebrities wear become influenced towards the products, and they begin to place demands and make use of the product. So these persons are influenced by these celebrity groups or reference groups. Try to, directly or indirectly conform to the person's lifestyle. Another social factor is the family. The family. A lot of times we find ourselves growing up to taking most of these attitude, the behaviors that our families, the child grows up seeing his parents dislike alcohol intake from childhood to adulthood. He always seen his father not supporting alcohol intake. Unconsciously, this child begins to have the same attitude towards alcoholic beverages as an influence, a social influence. Another child grows up, possibly a child whose father is involved in politics. The child grows up, seeing the father discuss political matters, discuss governance, discuss leadership, and gradually the child begins to develop interests in that same line. That is an influence. The same thing happens with religion. The same thing happens with, product purchase, the kind of goods, attitude to wealth, attitude to affluence, humility, and all kinds of behavior. So in this sense, the person's family becomes an influence. Also, person's spouse, a husband or a wife, could influence the other in closeness and interaction. Another example of a social influence is social roles and status. Within a society, there are roles that a person is expected of. The person's social status places him uh, 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 on a position, and that position is expected to come with a kind of lifestyle. And this social status becomes a reason for the person to consume certain kinds of products. You may find that because an individual is, let's say, occupies a position of political leadership, he is no longer expected to eat in some kinds of restaurants, to dress in some kind of ways, to drive some kind of car. That becomes a socially influenced consumption pattern. The third category of influence on consumer behavior is personal factors. An individual's personal characteristics, such as age, stage in the life cycle, personality, and self-concept, could also be a reason to live in some kind of way, to consume some kind of product. People over a lifetime buy different things. You can agree with me that what a baby eats is different from what an adolescent eats, and is different from what an adult eats. The same thing in their taste for clothing, for furniture, for uh, gadgets, varies. I may imagine that at the time when we were younger, by this time our interest is on uh, being making sure that your Christmas clothes is ready. But I can beat my chest that a lot of persons enrolled on this program may not be thinking of buying themselves Christmas clothes this time because interest is changing. The stage in the life cycle is affecting the individual's preferences. The same thing happens with uh, families, newlyweds. Their product demand is quite different from that of a family that has about 3, 4 kids. And as the kids grow, maybe going to university, getting married, the demand of that family begins to change again to something else. So the family life cycle also has a way of affecting consumption patterns of buyer behavior. Also, an individual's economic circumstance or occupation could affect his consumption pattern or buying behavior. A lot of government workers, corporate workers who always appear in suit and tie could have different consumption pattern from the artisans who we call the blue collar workers. If you buy, they will have interest in buying different items. You may hardly see an automobile mechanic go into the market to buy a suit and tie, except it's his wedding or he's being appointed to be a best man. But a corporate worker who finds that as his dress code will always buy that. And so it's important that marketers try to understand an individual or the consumer so that products that meet his requirements can be targeted to him. Also is an individual's lifestyle. Individual's lifestyle is also a personal factor that affects his buying behavior. Some persons have a flamboyant lifestyle, some have a moderate lifestyle, and some could have what some we call a miser lifestyle. This goes a long way to affect what the individual buys. Also is the personality and self-concept. When we talk about personality, we're looking at the way an individual sees him or herself, the way he expects, he wants to carry himself, the way he expresses himself. And so, in most cases, you may hear people, you may see people do some things, not because they have the money, not because they, because not even because they so much like it, but because that is the way they want to be seen to be. That's the way they want to express themselves. And lastly, we also have the psychological factors. Psychological factors, it includes motivation, perception, learning, beliefs, and attitudes. When we talk about motivation, we're talking about an inner drive that moves a person to act in a particular way. Some of these psychological states could be hunger, could be taste, could be discomfort, could be anger. And all of this drives an individual to act in a particular way. So much that this becomes a motive for the action or the behavior. So a need becomes a motive when it is aroused to a sufficient level of intensity. And a motive is a need that is sufficiently pressing to drive the person to act. It needs to be enough to get the person to do something, to make a move. Second is perception. Perception. The perception is a process by which an individual selects, organizes, and interprets information inputs in order to create a meaningful picture of the world. In simpler terms, perception is the way an individual sees something. I could pick up a phone and two different persons may perceive it in different ways. Maybe say an iPhone. Mr. A may see it as a way of, as a prestige product. Mr. B may see it as affluence. Either of these two perceptions will affect whether they will buy the product or not. The third psychological factor is learning. Learning involves change in behavior that comes from experience. And a lot of times, human behaviors are learned. And this learning is produced through the interplay of drives, stimuli, cues, responses, and reinforcement. If you perform an action and the experience is rewarding, there is a higher possibility that you perform the same action again. However, if you perform an action and the experience is not encouraging, you begin to drop that action. That behavior begins to die down. And in so doing, if an individual buys a product and that product meets expectation or even surpasses expectation in terms of performance, that individual is more inclined to buy the product over and over again. And is also inclined to buy other products from the same manufacturer because he believes that he has learned by experience that this manufacturer is good and meets expectations. However, if the reverse is the case, even purchase of the already the product itself become low, and purchase of new products may be non-expected. Also have the beliefs and attitude. Belief and attitude. An individual's belief is the thoughts that the individual holds about something. These beliefs may be based on knowledge, may be based on opinion, may be based on faith, or may be emotional. And of course, it's important for manufacturers to try to understand the consumer's belief towards their products and services. It is when you understand this, you will know if there is need to change these beliefs, maybe through an advertising campaign, to make them think otherwise. Sometime, a couple of years back, it was rumored that Indomie noodles causes cancer. It took a whole lot of campaigns for the company to change these beliefs and still maintain market leadership in the noodles industry. So organizations should understand the belief system of the beliefs the consumers have towards their product. A lot of times when you want to refer to a fake electronics, you call it China. Now the question is, are those products really substandard, or is it a belief system? And it's important to understand as marketers this belief system, because this belief will trigger an attitude towards the product. A favorable belief will trigger a favorable attitude. And then this attitude is going to translate to behavior, which is expected to be a purchase or non-purchase. So it's important that organizations try to understand the belief system that individuals hold towards their products, their goods and services. Now let's take a look at the consumer buying decision process. In most cases, the consumer goes through a series of steps in the course of making a buying decision. This step begins with a problem recognition. When we talk about problem recognition, we're looking at the need identification. An individual identifies a need, and this need would come from any of the factors we just discussed. Could be by social factor, could be psychological, just a need arises, and it drives the consumer to want to find a product or a service to fill the gap. And so this problem recognition or need identification stage moves the consumer to the second stage, the information search. In most cases, depending on the type of product, the consumer may need to gather information on how to be able to solve the problem identified. You may want to ask questions on the products, the brands that is needed or that there is in the market that will be able to satisfy the need. So an aroused consumer who recognizes a problem will be inclined to search for more information. If, for instance, it is a new need, not a recurrent need. By new need, I mean is a need for a product that you don't buy often. There may be need for extended information search. But if it is something that you've been buying and buying and buying, maybe this stage may be bypassed. So a lot of times, this information can be gotten from friends, can be gotten from marketers, can be gotten from public sources, maybe through mass media and consumer reviews and all whatnot. But in the course of gathering this information, the consumer wants to learn more and more about the different brands that has the capacity to meet this need. And it is on the basis of this that the consumer can make a choice. However, the consumer cannot make a choice until he or she has evaluated these alternatives. If in the course of information search you find that there are 3 brands that can suit or meet the requirement, the consumer begins to evaluate each of them on the basis of what he or she wants. So the third stage is evaluation of alternatives. So he wants to look at these alternatives to see how they meet his or her requirements. Consumer sees each of these products as a bundle of attributes that has different abilities of delivering the benefits to satisfy his needs. However, these attributes of interest to buyers vary by product. For instance, 2 persons may go into a phone shop. Mr. A is looking for high internet speed. Mr. B is looking for camera quality, video quality, sound, and all whatnot. These are products that meet the same basic needs of connectivity over space, but they have different attributes that appeal to the people differently. And so it's in the course of this evaluation, at the end of this evaluation, the consumer has chosen the attributes that he or she thinks or places high in his mind. And then, having made this choice, the consumer moves to the 4th stage, which is the purchase decision. Because in the evaluation stage, the consumer forms preferences among the brands within his choice set, and may also form an intention to buy. Or in this case, or in this stage, the interest is to convert this intention to buy into actual purchase. And it is important that marketers understand the stage a consumer is at each point in time. For instance, a consumer who is already at this stage of making a purchase, it is important that the marketer places or makes it easy for the consumer to buy. For instance, telling him the alternative purchase options, maybe offering door-to-door delivery, offering instrumental payments, offering different payment modes, just to make the purchase decision easier. And after the purchase decision, the post-purchase behavior. Have you ever gone to the market, bought a pair of shoes, and on your way back, you are dragging within your mind if you really bought the best pair of shoes amongst all the ones you saw in the market? I think I've found myself in that situation a couple of times. It is within the post-purchase behavior that this is happening within the consumer. And it's important that the marketer follows through at this point to make the post-purchase behavior a favorable one. Within the post-purchase, two things are likely to happen: post-purchase satisfaction and post-purchase dissonance. Satisfaction happens when the buyer's expectation and the product performance are closely linked. If performance falls short of this expectation, post-purchase dissonance occurs. And it is important that as a marketer, you are still active even after purchase. In some instances, studies have shown that post-purchase dissonance occurs not because the product is bad in itself, but because the consumer uses it wrongly. So it's also important that marketers make this stage effective by helping with maybe installation, by helping with delivery, by helping with a guideline on how to make use of the product. If a product is good and is well used, it's expected that the consumer will be delighted. That's when his expectation, performance surpasses his expectation, will lead to customer delight. Otherwise, the customer will be disappointed, will be dissatisfied. So these are the stages in the consumer buying decision process. Feel free to make your comments on the website, contribute to the discussion on the platform, and let's hear your view. Also, try your hands on the selves at the study questions and attempt them to be able to assess your level of understanding of the study